Author Mitch Albom has written 6 New York Times bestsellers, including Tuesdays with Morrie. His latest book revisits the characters from one of his best, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. The sequel reveals the story of what happened to Annie, the little girl whose near-death experience sent Eddie into the afterlife. Mitch Albom is here to talk about the next person you meet in heaven. Mitch, what a pleasure to read this book. It was wonderful.
Thank you, Meryl.
Really enjoyed it. So it's been 15 years since we heard about Eddie in The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Why did you want to do a sequel?
It wasn't so much I wanted to. I've never written a sequel before, but of all my books, The 5 People You Meet in Heaven was the one that readers would constantly ask me, so what happened to Eddie after the first stage of heaven? He goes to heaven, he meets 5 people who explain his life to him, but then what? You know, where does he go next? And what happened to the little girl that he saved? So for years I was hearing that, and then in the last couple of years I've suffered some losses in my own personal life that made me sort of think a lot about heaven. And I thought, well, maybe after 15 years it's a good time to try a sequel.
Well, it certainly was. Annie is a person who lets her mistakes define her. Is that a common theme, you think, with a lot of us?
Absolutely. You know, I go back to when I was visiting with Morrie Schwartz, the whole Tuesdays with Morrie experience. And one of the things he said to me as he was dying was, you know, you need to forgive yourself. And I said, what do you mean? He said, for all the times you beat yourself up, I should have done this, I should have done that. He said, when you get to the end, like I am, you're going to wish that you had been nicer to yourself. And so I kind of took that sentiment and created in Annie a person who is haunted by mistakes, starting from the mistake she made when she was 8 years old of running the wrong direction, and it ended up leading to a man's death. And then all the other things that she does through high school and when she gets a job and her relationships. I think there are a lot of people out there who are kind of too tough on themselves for what they consider always making mistakes, always doing the wrong thing. And I think if heaven is the place that I hope it is, we'll find out that a lot of these mistakes that we thought we made actually fit into a bigger plan and were the right thing at the right time.
Yeah. You know, many of your books talk about people dying, but it seems to me that they're more about the ways that we ought to live. Is that right?
That's absolutely right, and thank you for saying that. Sometimes people tease me about, why are you so fascinated with death? I said, I'm not fascinated with death. The books about serial killers are fascinated with death. I use death only as an illumination to life and loss and things like that. You know, there's a moment in the book that's very dear to me, I'll give you an example of that, where Annie is in heaven and she's complaining about deaths and losses in her life and people that she's lost. And the character takes these pipe cleaners, which play a part in the book, and he takes one pipe cleaner and he makes a small little tiny perfect heart, and he says, you see this perfect little small heart? This is the heart that we're born with. And then he takes the other 4 pipe cleaners and makes this big heart that's got lines and crosses all over it, and he says, you see this heart? This is the heart that we die with. And Annie says, but it's all broken. And he says, that's right. And she says, so that's what ruins it. And he says, no, that's what makes it whole. And that's the way that I have had to come to look at losses in my life, and Annie learns to look at the losses as well, that yes, it breaks our heart, and yes, we get these lines on our heart as a result, but that's part of leading a long and fulfilled life. That's part of how you appreciate the things that you still have because of the things that you've lost and you know you could lose again. So I do think all that tragedy that we suffered fits into a larger picture if you just look for it.
Yeah, definitely. A lot of hope in this book and in your other books as well. Thank you so much for being with us today. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you, Meryl. I appreciate that.
All right. The Next Person You Meet in Heaven is the name of the book. It is available now wherever you buy your books.